Good afternoon once again, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar on bookkeeping in a virtual world. My name is Mary, and I'll be your moderator today. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to message in the chat box. To open the chat box, you can click on the chat icon at the bottom of your screen, which will then open the chat box. If you have any technical difficulties throughout the session, feel free to message me by clicking on the drop-down menu and selecting all panelists, or simply by raising your hand by clicking the raise hand icon on your screen. We will open the floor to questions at the end of the presentation, but we encourage you to ask questions as we go along. Ask a question by clicking the Q&A icon and typing your question in the Q&A box. If your presentation screen today happens to be too small, you can enlarge it by clicking on the line and dragging it to the right. It will then look like this. Today, our presenters are Kyle Turriff and Maggie Kurtz. Kyle manages technology at RLB and brings over a decade of IT and accounting technology experience. He started with our firm in the bookkeeping group and was finding creative and remote workflows for his clients long before virtual bookkeeping software even existed. He has since become an evangelist for those integrations and now focuses his time leading his team on process improvement and automation. Maggie started her career working in industry in the accounting field, and whilst going to night school and raising 4 boys, she grew into the role of controllership CFO. Her experience has been with large system implementations. And once she had successfully mastered conversions, she ran her own business, which she then merged into RLB Amplify about 3 years ago. When she joined RLB, there were only 4 people in the department, and today the business solutions support team has grown to 18 team members. Maggie's role in the firm is business solutions team leader, which includes client service and support, new system setup in the online world, conversion from desktop to online, monthly bookkeeping, and ensuring we are the leading edge of software that we create efficiencies where we can. Good afternoon, Maggie and Kyle.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks for the introduction. And thank you for everybody that joined today as well.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. Our hope for the session today is to give an introduction to virtual bookkeeping, also known as cloud accounting, to anybody that may not be familiar or is interested in learning a little bit more. So on the agenda today, we have a quick overview of what is virtual bookkeeping, some of the advantages, maybe disadvantages, as well as the opportunities that going online do provide, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. Also some things to consider, some things you may not be aware of, some of the important questions to ask before you're thinking of making the move. And then what is the app ecosystem? So we're going to talk a lot today about the different apps that are used to kind of accomplish these goals and set up the workflows. So we'll give an overview of the app ecosystem that we use at RLB and Amplify, as well as give a client example of a workflow. So how they all work together and how they work together with a business and with an accounting firm to kind of get the job done. So we'll give an overview, and Maggie's going to go through some detail on the different processes and how they work together. The next is how we communicate. So some communication collaboration tools that we use that you may find helpful. Obviously, when you're doing things in a virtual world like this, you're going to need some different tools. And then lastly, we'll talk about filings and reporting. So how we handle government filings, how we handle reporting and looking at any metrics that are pulled from these systems, and how we deal with that with our clients. So with that, I think we have a poll to get us started. Mary's going to pop up a poll about what you're currently using. So any of you out there that are currently have a business that is using a bookkeeping software, you can select multiple here, or if you don't have anything yet, and you're just looking to get started, there's an option there for that too. So we're just interested to see what everybody out there is using right now. We'll leave it open for a couple seconds here and see what we're at. If anybody isn't seeing the poll, sometimes they do pop up behind the window you're viewing, so just check that if you're not seeing the poll up. Okay, so we'll take a look here. So a couple of you, about 18% with nothing yet, someone with an other, and it looks like Sage and QuickBooks Desktop kind of leading the way, which is what we normally see as the two definite industry leaders in kind of what we call an on-premises bookkeeping solution. So that's great. Okay, so moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about what is virtual bookkeeping, or what are we even talking about when we mention that. So it's also known as cloud accounting. That's more of an industry term you might hear, but they're really used interchangeably. It just means you're doing everything in a virtual manner. So all work can be done anywhere, anytime, and that's because all of the systems, the apps, the software is all hosted online. So just like QuickBooks Online or Xero, which we'll get into, it's all accessed via a web browser or an app on your computer. So it really becomes computer agnostic. You don't need that one computer in your office that has the QuickBooks or Sage file, or you may have multiple team members accessing the same file. You just delegate user access. You just log in online to any user you want access to and then give the rights from there, which means you're accessing that information from anywhere or any device, and only the people that you want to have access. It also means paperless. So in the workflows that we're going to talk about, there is paper involved, but to trigger the workflow, it becomes paperless. So it's all handled through the different apps, and we'll show you what that looks like. But obviously, to work with a virtual bookkeeper or virtual team members to get your books done, paper becomes a hindrance to that. So we need to go paperless. And then utilizing apps. So most of what we're going to talk about today, and virtual bookkeeping or cloud accounting in general, revolves around the use of apps to get the job done. So a lot of those apps are using automation or artificial intelligence to help out with memorizing transactions, suggesting where things should go, and then sometimes even handling that themselves if you give it permission to do so, which saves a lot of time. And then something here called optical character recognition, or OCR for short. That's just a technical term for meaning if something's scanned or a picture's taking of it. It can read numbers, or it can read a vendor. So a Canadian Tire receipt, it knows that it says Canadian Tire, so it'll post it as Canadian Tire for $54 plus HST. Some of the software we use does do that, and it does it quite well. And then a human obviously goes in and makes sure that that's correct, but it's really handy for data entry, and we'll go over that a little more in detail as well. And then integrations, or API, is the kind of the technical term, but integrations is the key here. So that automation and utilizing these apps, that's the potential that's unlocked when you're doing virtual bookkeeping. So we're going to talk a little bit about the potential there as well. So those different apps talking to each other, so you're not entering data at each step along the way. And then video conferencing, just like we're doing today. That's really the main communication tool for a virtual bookkeeper or anybody that's providing online accounting services, to talk and collaborate, share screens. You're looking at the same thing at the same time, and you're meeting more frequently using video software. So moving on to important things to consider. This is something we kind of go over with any potential new client, and we're wanting to walk through before they come on board. Is one of the main things is backup. So with any client, we're always talking about backing up your, those of you using Sage or QuickBooks, you're hopefully used to creating a backup file. And again, hopefully that backup file is not on the same computer you just created it on, because the whole point of backing up is what if something happens to that computer? So then it's all lost. So we often say to people when they ask how often should I back up my file, it's, well, how much work do you want to have to redo when that hard drive fails or something happens? So most people are putting it on a thumb drive or a hard drive, which is great, because then that's separate. With cloud accounting software, there's no need for that. It's all just saved. The service provider's handling that for you. Again, it's not tied to that one computer. So that no need for backups. Even if you are doing them, a lot of the times clients start to do backups and they're pretty good for a couple of weeks, and then it falls off. And then all of a sudden you've got 3 months between you've done a backup. Now you don't have to worry about that at all. It's all just handled. The software does come with monthly fees, which is something to consider versus just buying a one-time license of something like Simply Accounting or Sage, sorry, as it's called now, or QuickBooks Desktop. With payroll, you need to keep that ongoing, but this is just a monthly fee and the software is always up to date. But it can be a little more costly, and we can talk about that a little bit down the road as well. The set monthly fee for service here, that usually is from our perspective as a firm or any virtual bookkeeper, the workflow's set, which means the scope of doing any bookkeeping or online accounting is known. So often it comes with a set monthly fee for somebody that they know how much they're going to be paying their bookkeeper and accountant to do that job. And that usually includes the cost of the software, and that software usually comes at a discount because we're able to offer it at a volume, and we always just pass that along to our clients. So the no handing paper back and forth is a big win that we hear from our clients, not needing to drop things off or come pick things up, or emails going back and forth. It's everything's just kind of in the same place, and if you need it, you go access it, and the same is for anybody on your team. And that speaks to the anytime, anywhere access from any device. So an example there of that is we have a farmer client who sometimes needs to deal with the QuickBooks file or is interested in what's going on in QuickBooks, or sending out invoices or paying bills. And we're told the story of doing that from an iPhone in the tractor, taking a break, putting feet up in the field, literally sending an invoice from an iPhone. So when we say anywhere, anytime, any device, it really is true. And obviously that depends for any business owner, but that release from a computer that's in an office at the house is usually where people find a big win, especially if they have a payroll that they need to be involved in helping process, or have a bookkeeper process. How do you take vacation when payroll's due next Wednesday and your computer's in the basement? For a business owner, they're no longer tethered to that specific computer. Each of our clients and anybody I've kind of talked to that does set something up like this or is doing some sort of virtual bookkeeping, it's always a custom workflow. No two businesses are really that alike, or there's always preference on how things are set up. So everybody usually gets some sort of custom workflow, and we work to create that custom workflow, especially if this is something that's brand new. And it's how all the apps kind of will work together, how information gets in, who's seeing it, and who's doing what job. So part of any process in kind of onboarding or switching over to virtual bookkeeping or cloud accounting needs a custom workflow to be thought through. So it's really something that needs to be thought through and documented, at least on one pager on who's doing what and where everything will sit. The next part you want to make sure is that there's a certain tech savviness to this, right? My dad owns a business, and he is not the right client for cloud accounting, and I wouldn't want to help him with it. Trust me, we've had that conversation. He has a flip phone, and he's stuck to his flip phone, and he's not going to access his books. He's certainly not going to take a picture of his receipt that he just got at the gas station, but he does have somebody that works for him that will. So could he hand those tasks to that person and still get what he needs? Yes, but you have to have somebody that's either tech savvy or a little bit tech willing. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be highly technical. You have to be able to use a smartphone and send emails. And I would suggest that anybody that's connected into this webinar today is fully capable of handling that. We do have clients. Maggie has an example that I think she'll give later of a client who is 90 years old, I think, right, Maggie, that you meet with?
Yeah, so I've been working with her for the last couple of and she's close to 90, and I'm able to help her work through just about anything online.
Good. So that's the tech willingness of it, right? You need somebody that's tech willing, that's able to either connect in on Zoom or take a chance with an app. So the next is Xero versus QuickBooks Online. These are the two industry leaders of the bookkeeping software that you'd use. Xero is I'll get into a little bit later, but the multi-currency and job costing, as well as e-commerce, is where Xero is really strong. And QuickBooks, there's just more familiarity out there with people with QuickBooks product. It has caught up to the technical capabilities of Xero, and more integrations are there, and it's changing, each month essentially. And there's the ability in QuickBooks Online to upload a QuickBooks desktop file. So QuickBooks Desktop being one of the most widely used bookkeeping software out there, it's nice to be able to do a conversion and be able to upload a backup file and get all of your previous data into QuickBooks Online. But that's not necessarily should be the deciding factor. It's a lot of the times people think they need their historical data there. And it's not really true. What you do need, you want your customer lists and emails and things like that, and that's easily exported to lists and uploaded, and our team always help with that. But just because you're converting to QuickBooks Online or Xero doesn't mean your old file is going away. It just means you're no longer updating it, but it is there as an archive if you needed to go get something. So that's one thing I think people are often afraid of when thinking of making the switch, is that I'm going to lose everything that I had. In either scenario, you're either going to go back and have it, or you're going to get all or some of the information already uploaded during a conversion process. And that's something we often help clients with as well.
And Kyle, I'll just jump in here. Just right now with Xero, they've, so because we have a partnership with Xero, they're offering our clients that want to switch from Sage accounting to Xero that they'll actually bring in 2 years of prior data into the software. So they're looking to help businesses convert onto the online as well. Yeah,
both of those software companies help like you wouldn't believe, to try and get you there, because that's where they want to support. So that's important to remember as well. So most of what we do is revolving around this app ecosystem. So I've mentioned it a little bit before. This is just a picture of some of what's available, and it's not really meant to overwhelm. But we are going to throw up a poll here on maybe what you have seen before, or what you're familiar with, just to get an idea if anything that you see on that slide looks familiar to you.
There's definitely lots of choices.
Okay. Oh, this is interesting. So
good.
Almost half have heard of HubDoc, which is great, and 70% have heard of Shopify, which is also great because those are two Canadian companies, and so is WagePoint. So the Canadian versions of these apps are out there, and Shopify is actually, from a market cap perspective, Canada's largest company now. So that's great to see that a lot of people are familiar with it. So what I'll do is I'm going to go through an overview of each of these, and maybe I'll spend a little less time on those ones that people are familiar with, just to kind of give you an idea. Now, they all serve a different purpose, and these, like I said, these aren't everything. These are just what we would consider industry leaders and what we tend to use with our clients to solve specific problems. And again, you don't have to use all apps, you don't even have to use one, but they do serve their own purposes. And some of, especially I would say 3 or 4 years ago, and especially QuickBooks Online, there would be, oh, I can't convert there because they won't handle this specific thing that QuickBooks Desktop could, or that I want it to do. And that has changed. And like I said, it does change monthly, but it also was never designed to handle everything that QuickBooks could, or even the enterprise version. It was designed to let different applications like this that handle that job, whether it be inventory, receipt tracking, payments, do their thing the best way they could, and then integrate and automate the posting of those transactions back to your general ledger. So it's a little bit of a mindset shift on how things are done and what QuickBooks can do. But here, let me just go through a quick overview. So HubDoc is basically one of the main apps we use with any client that we're doing virtual bookkeeping for. So HubDoc is exactly that. It's a hub for your documents. It sits online. There's an app on your phone, and you can get documents into it in multiple different ways, which I think sometimes people don't realize. So it can go fetch documents like your Rogers bill or your bank statements. You just give it the credentials, and every month the PDF just shows up there in the right folder, and you can see how that would be handy for your bookkeeper or even you to have one place to go and look at those things. It can also receive emails, so forwarding an email to a custom HubDoc address just automatically puts the attachment of that email. If you're getting emails from a service provider or RLB, or you're getting your invoice that way, you just simply hit forward to a contact in your contact list. That PDF is then put in the right folder automatically, ready to be processed. The other way is directly from the app. Like I mentioned, my father's example that I couldn't get him to do is you take a picture with your smartphone. I'm at the gas station, snap a quick picture of the receipt. It's there. You don't even necessarily need that receipt anymore, but it's a best practice to file that somewhere still. But at least it's taken that. With all of those situations, the OCR, or optical recognition, does take over, and it will suggest to you that this is this receipt. That's how it files it in the right folder. This is the amount. This is the HST, and your bookkeeper can publish it across to your QuickBooks. The transaction's posted, and then the copy of the receipt is there, which is really nice. So in an example, there's this $500 charge that a bookkeeper's never seen before. What the heck is this? What was the business owner doing? In QuickBooks, they'll click on that transaction, a picture of that receipt will be there. If you're using HubDoc the right way, that's how it all flows through. So there is a PDF, a picture attached to the actual numbered transaction in QuickBooks. HubDoc can also be set to auto transact some things. Trucking company goes to a gas station a lot. Those gas receipts just get auto published right to QuickBooks, don't even need a human interaction. So you can see where there is a lot of time savings on the back end of something like that. And that's why we use HubDoc to kind of collaborate and collect on the accounts payable side. So Shopify, most of you are familiar with as back-end software to a website or an e-commerce store. The nice thing is it does integrate with QuickBooks Online and Xero and other apps, and it'll post your sales, post change in customer data. Things can be set up to automatically post those in QuickBooks Online, so you're not taking a sales report and entering it, so it's in your general ledger so you can file your HST. It's all done when the sale happens. I'll mention just Receipt Bank at the top. We also use Receipt Bank. It's essentially a competitor to HubDoc. It's very good at handling more of a really high volume of small receipts. There is just some user difference between the two. We just happen to go with HubDoc, but Receipt Bank is also a great option. Again, a bank for your receipts, does a lot of the same things that HubDoc does. WagePoint is how we handle software. WagePoint is how we handle payroll. So if we're providing payroll services for our clients, WagePoint is the tool we're using to do it. WagePoint will do direct deposit to your employees, handle source deductions, pay that to the government. Maggie's going to show a little bit of workflow of how that happens. But WagePoint is really handy and obviously integrates back in your QuickBooks or Xero, so your payroll's posted. Veeam is another tool we use, which I don't think in the survey many had heard of Veeam. Veeam is great for making or receiving payments, especially via direct debit or withdrawals. So you can set up all through their app to email a client with a form they fill out, and you can direct withdraw funds from their account, or you can pay them. So we use it on the accounts payable and accounts receivable side for more of not necessarily e-commerce, but more for if you're sending invoices and your client's fine with you just taking that automatic withdrawal. You can do that. Veeam then posts the payment back to QuickBooks, and there's no bookkeeping done as long as the integration's set up correctly. All of your payments that need to be made or your invoices that need to be received are in Veeam, and you can select, I want to send this to so-and-so. They send you the money, and it's posted in QuickBooks or Xero, which is obviously really handy for not doing some sort of dual data entry there on, yes, I've received the payment, because it already obviously knows you've received it into your bank. On the other side, T-Sheets and Pluto. So I'll talk about Pluto first. Pluto it operates very similar to Veeam. They do tend to be low fee or no fee. I believe Veeam under a certain amount is free, Maggie.
It's completely free if you're on an online system right now. That's just something they're offering.
So yeah, you're not paying a percentage or a fee. I believe Pluto's $1. They both handle international transfers as well, which is great for those people who need it. So they kind of do the same thing. We've tended to go more towards Veeam just because of that free option, and they're really pushing growth. So Veeam's been great for our clients. T-Sheets is by QuickBooks, so it was a separate company. QuickBooks bought them, and that's for time tracking. So timesheets. We have a couple client examples of they're using T-Sheets, an app on their employee's phone. One owns a fast food chain. The other is an engineering firm that has techs out and about, a surveying firm, where they're scheduled in T-Sheets. They put their time in T-Sheets, and that automatically goes to either WagePoint or QuickBooks with that information. So business owners are utilizing it to schedule, say where people need to be, managing their teams, and their teams are using the app to put their time in, putting it to the right job even, and that's all auto flowing into QuickBooks or Xero. The two at the bottom, Spotlight Reporting and Fathom, are competing reporting tools or dashboarding. So all of this, obviously, there's a lot of data that sits there in any of these tools you're using. And they are specifically designed to pull out of QuickBooks or Xero that information and present it to you in a different way. And some can even pull from other data sources. But if you're looking for deeper insights, and our accountants and bookkeepers would use these with clients that want it at those monthly or quarterly meetings to gather a little more insight into what's happening with their business. And some business owners just like to have that dashboard for themselves or their management team. So we thought we'd mention the reporting apps that plug in as well. I have here in brackets this Office 365 G Suite, and why I mention that is if that's your kind of if you're online, if you're using G Suite email, your contact list, or Office 365, or a lot of other tools, there's something called Zapier out there, which allows for even further integration. So just think of it this way: a contact can be added in your on your phone, and then that contact is also added as a customer in QuickBooks automatically, or vice versa. So you add a contact gets added to your QuickBooks, bang, their email and phone number is on your phone. So that's little items like that, but there's a breadth of things that can be done by integrating apps like that, even with spreadsheets, data in spreadsheets, things like that. So I just wanted to mention it because once you're in this world, those are the possibilities that open up to kind of eliminate some of that administrative work and just some of those nice to haves.
That's great, Kyle. There's a lot of apps out there, and sometimes knowing where to go is some of the hardest things. So out of the box, any use QuickBooks Online or Xero, out of the box is probably, it rarely works 100% to what you want it. So you really need to customize or bring in the external apps to make things work on them. Now, we're not saying that you need to have all the apps involved, but I would say, then maybe you pick 2 or 3 and then you get really proficient in those ones. And then maybe, as you move into this online world, you're, okay, I want to see more of this. And then you bring in another app to sort of help that. The accounting system is really the hub for all the information. And then the apps help with all the things that, how to make it better or how to make things run better. So we really try to help our clients that are doing this conversion to the online world, like to help them customize to their business. So we spend a lot of time, working through the process and how your process works, because every individual business is so different. So we really try to tailor all of those systems and the process that is actually happening to the business, because that's the hardest part is like, okay, this app works, but then how does that work in our business? So we try to, we'll give you recommendations on how we think it should work or what the process should look like. And then sometimes there has to be some tweaks, either, the business process has to change a little bit, or the other way around, maybe that software is not that right software. So maybe let's look at a different app to sort of help us accommodate that. So so we really spend time trying to figure out what that process is with moving this stuff to online. All right, so Kyle mentioned I'm going to talk a little bit more about the workflow. So in the manual world, or the original way of doing things, like, it's very manual. So you receive your bill by mail. Somebody has to go open up that bill. Somebody then codes it, and then data enters it into the system. Goes through an approval process. It probably goes through your, AP waiting time. And then, okay, now it's time to pay it. You're going to print the check. If you have more than one signing authority person, you probably have to hunt down those people to get that signed. And then you got to mail the check and, lick the envelope and put the stamp on it, and away it goes. So on the ideal cloud accounting side, you want to receive the bill by email. You want to email it into HubDoc. The processing, it can either be set up automatically, or this is where the manual side comes in, where the person's actually looking at the bill in HubDoc. HubDoc has digitized that bill, and it pushes it into QBO or Xero. So that means every transaction that is posted in the accounting system has an actual documentation attached to it. It's great for auditing, or trying to figure out if there's been a misposting down to the bottom level, to sort of see how that transaction, or what that transaction is. And then once it's digital and it's put into the accounting system as outstanding, then we connect in Veeam, which is our payable function. It knows the bill's outstanding, and you can send an email out to send the payment through Veeam. And then once that payment's been received, it comes back and it automates the posting back into the accounting system. So just to sort of give you a quick example, personally for, this cloud accounting. So with the pandemic this year, I'm treasurer for my children's lacrosse association. I had to refund all the parents this year, because obviously there was no lacrosse that happened. We did 400 transactions in a matter of a couple hours. So we were able to and have multi-signature, so closely with the president of the organization, and we had multi-approvers, because we can't just have one person signing it, and all that money was refunded to those parents, and in a difficult time. So I think that the end users definitely saw a huge impact of going on this online, being on the cloud. So that was really helpful for getting stuff paid and looked after. So invoicing, so manually on the invoicing side, somebody would, look at the time. If it's a T&M, like you had time and materials, somebody would actually write that invoice up, or, enter it into the computer, and then print it off, mail it out, and you sort of go through that same process. So on the cloud accounting side, when we sort of help, we don't necessarily do that part for you, because that's very client facing and to your clients. But we will help you. We'll help you, like, train you how to do it. We'll provide, set up templates, and then we'll assist with the online payment side of it. So Kyle's talked about Pluto. There's also Stripe that you can receive money by, Square as well. And also in QuickBooks, you're able to set up your like Visa, MasterCard. So when you email the bill, instead of manually printing it and mailing it, so when you email the bill out, it gives them the option to pay right away. So what it does is it reduces your accounts receivable time, which then obviously turns around and helps the business much faster in the cash perspective way. So so that's we don't necessarily get into that, but we'll definitely help you set that up to get that working. And then Pluto's the option to be able to pull money from the client. Once that's set up then you can pull the payment when the invoice is due. So that's just another option. So then there's payroll. So we like to use a payroll app. We find it works much better than actually using QuickBooks Online Payroll. We find you're able to do more with the app, and it does more for you. So we sort of move the processing and all that stuff to WagePoint. So WagePoint will do direct deposits with employees. They will pay your source deductions for you. They'll pay your WSIB for you. They will process your T4s. They'll process your ROEs. If you need other deductions or type like benefits or any other additions for income, we can set those things up. The cool thing about it is we're removing some of the admin side of managing the employees back to the employees. So with WagePoint, once you have everything set up, you email out their login. They can log in and they can update their own address. They can update their own banking information. They can retrieve their own pay stubs. They can pull their own T4. If they need to make any changes to their TD1 form, if they wanted additional tax taken off, they can become responsible for that. So it takes a little bit of the administration side of the payroll to takes that away from the person who's processing, which again helps a bit on the time side. So yeah, and then once payroll's processed, it's basically click, click, click. Once payroll's processed, and if you're using QuickBooks or Xero, it doesn't matter. The bank feed will bring in the amount, and then WagePoint integrates as well into Xero, and you're posting the journal entry that's been set up to your GL automatically, and then all the documentation comes along with it. So again, as soon as you're drilling down to the lowest level, you'll be able to, in the transactions, you'll actually be able to see the actual reporting that goes along with it. So it integrates really, really nice. And again, when you're trying to audit or figure things out, it's nice to go back and look at some of that stuff without having to go in multiple sections. All right, time tracking. So Kyle touched a little bit on the T-sheets. So T-sheets, again, we recommend T-sheets. T-sheets integrates into WagePoint. WagePoint integrates into that whole other ecosystem. So T-sheets, you're able to, it's your time tracking. So you can have your employees down the phone. You're able to schedule. So we have I guess it's like an HVAC company that's using it to schedule, so they can see where their technicians are at any given time because it's GPS regulated. It integrates into QuickBooks, so you don't have to manually enter the time that's been approved in T-sheets. It's already come over, and you basically then it makes the process really streamlined. Your people that are approving the time. You're tracking your vacation. You're tracking your your holidays, and your scheduling. You can pull, you can like management, like reporting management, or should I say, reporting reports for management and for team management as well. So you can do a lot of things with the app that will help on that side as well. All right, so this is the full workflow, and I think Kyle, you were going to maybe speak to this page a little bit too. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is really just the, again, it's not meant to overwhelm, but this is the type of thing that we do and have set up for clients. It's important to note, and Maggie mentioned it, that not all clients use everything here. Just because you're on QuickBooks Online doesn't mean you have to use all of these other apps to get the job done, but they can be used, and that's the point of their integration. So the slides that Maggie just went through, we're focusing on payroll, and you can see that that's the kind of the payroll workflow, the accounts receivable, and the accounts payable workflow at the bottom. And those icons down there by HubDoc are just meant to say how the different types of documents would get into HubDoc and then how they'd flow into QuickBooks. So the little people at the start there, that's you or your team, and you're really putting information into T-sheets for payroll, straight into QuickBooks for accounts receivable, or if you're running a store, then there's Shopify or something running on top of that. Or if you're just creating your invoices directly in QuickBooks, which a lot of our clients do, and then you're putting the accounts payable information into HubDoc. Once that information's in, it's all flowing through the rest of the system fairly automagically, as some people say, but that's where the automation can come in. And if you're not comfortable with some of that being automated, you can still do a manual process there, but the potential is there. So this is a real client. This is what their workflow looks like, and how we would collaborate with them. So we just wanted to show kind of the full picture example of a workflow here.
Thanks, Kyle. Bank feeds. So to me, bank feeds are one of the key things of all this online stuff. It just makes things work so much smoother. I don't know what the right words are for all this, but it automates so much of it. So once we sort of figure out what that process is, and you're going through the process, entering your bills, you're doing your invoices, as your bills are being paid, the deposits being entered. So then on top of all that, your bank feed. So everything that is going through your bank is actual line by line coming into QuickBooks Online. And as you can see, as if we look at that first line, it's a dinner out. So it needs a category. It hasn't been entered. So we need to put a category in it. We would make sure that your HST module has been set up so that we would take out the meals and the HST portion for meals and entertainment. And then we would hit add, minimizing a bunch of manual entering, and then it's not missing any steps when you go to reconcile. So once you go through your monthly process, you go through your bank feeds, you hit add or match, and then when you get to your reconciliation, it takes a matter of minutes. And when you go into, jump in.
Just jump in there. That's such a key to especially virtual bookkeeping, because in an old system, your bookkeeper's putting through things that may or may not hit the bank, and they're entering things into QuickBooks, right? And then at the end of the month, they go to do a bank reconciliation. Some of you might be familiar with what that is or not. And if they're missing something, they have to go, oh, what was this? I see this $500 item on the bank statement. I got to go find out what that is and why I haven't entered it. Who didn't hand me that receipt? Who didn't tell me we made that sale? All of that. This tells the story because it's actually what went through your bank. So QuickBooks is already saying, hey, this went through your bank. It's taking a guess at what it is, and then you are saying, yes, that's what it is, and posting it. It can, I still have one client. I do bookkeeping for my cousin's distribution company in QuickBooks Online, and this is a lifesaver. That a lot of fuel, constantly fuel, and a lot of the same gas stations. So it automatically knows that if it sees on the bank or the Visa is the same thing. If it sees on the bank or the Visa the word fuel, put it to fuel, add HST, or it includes HST, and then just post it. I don't care. I don't want to see it. So now I'm just seeing the stuff that I need to see. Or if I've already got a bill in there, like this example from the phone company, the bill already came in from HubDoc. We see that they auto withdrew $70 from the bank. Do you want to match these two transactions together? And then it's all you do is click match, and all of the data entry is done. All that really happened was it actually came from your bank account and was auto paid, and the Rogers bill came in through HubDoc. So that example, if you're going to take anything away from today, utilizing these bank feeds without anything else is a massive time saver.
For sure. No, it is. And it basically writes the story of the books. And that's one of the things that we make sure is done every month as part of our month end when we're reviewing client files, that all this stuff is looked after. How we communicate. Okay, so we are communicating today through Zoom, which I personally spend a lot of time on Zoom. We have 160 people in our firm, and I think I've had the most minutes in the
Maggie is the
past.
consistent leader
Yeah,
before COVID as well, but Maggie leads the firm in Zoom, hours on Zoom, and that's
for sure. So I spend a lot of time on Zoom. I mentioned earlier that I work with, you know, I've worked with this, a close to 90-year-old lady to, help back up her software, send it in for a year end, or manipulate transactions. At one time, we would need to, if we were to help the client, we would need to, okay, we'd have to phone you, have you send a backup in. You'd send the backup, we would look at the issue, we might fix the issue, and then send the backup back to the client. Now we can just jump on Zoom. We can help you if the problem is a smaller problem. We can help you, in a matter of minutes, and then carry on. So as far as a cost effective, I think it's great for the cost savings on the client end, and your systems working much better. So internally, we use a management software called us the ability to share with our clients basically the monthly process or the monthly checklist that we would go through to make sure that your file is up to date. It has the ability to message back and forth with the client. So that means anybody on our team can see the messaging or any kind of problems that are happening. I shouldn't say problems, like anything, things don't make sense, so we need to investigate into that. It also has the ability to store files and share them with the client. So it works really well for us, and it gives us the ability to grow our business and manage our clients in a nice, easy format. I'm not sure how many people are using Slack, but we use Slack internally. We also can set up a Slack channel externally with our clients. It's kind of like, it's like a text message. We can just, it's simple. You just send the message through, and somebody can get it addressed, who's ever working on your team. And then
I can give an example there with an Amplify client that we designed a new invoicing process for him that was based off of Google's spreadsheet that he would keep. And I wouldn't advise this, but we helped him out with it. And then we used what I mentioned before, that integration tool. And it took us days to really go through this, but our team invited that client into a Slack group so you could see the benefit of us being able to instant message each other, because we were working with him and he was working with us for those days, because he understood the issue, his spreadsheets, what we were dealing with, and then we're one click away from jumping on a Zoom call and sharing our screen with each other. So a lot of you are familiar with that now, and you're not necessarily maybe learning anything new from us today, but what the key is there is if you are going to this world and somebody as important as your bookkeeper is working virtually, having this set up and knowing exactly what tool you're going to use in each situation, where the tracking, like Teamwork, where we track our lists and share files, if we're gonna text, or we're just Slack. So all that information's in Slack when we need to chat, and if we need to call each other or share a screen and collaborate, we know it's going to be a Zoom call. So we've been lucky as a firm. We've had these in place for 4 or 5 years now. So we've been in a really good spot when everyone needed to go remote, that we knew where we were going to be working. And I think if you're thinking about going in and having a virtual bookkeeper, you want to make sure that these tools are in place.
For sure. And I think as a firm, with what happened, we all went remote in March there, that I think the majority of my team are still working remotely, and we're being, to me, I'm thinking we're one of the most successful teams, which is nice to know, just because we were sort of using all these things before the pandemic happened, which was nice.
And they're what's allowed. So this on top of that workflow you've seen, we have clients from coast to coast to coast, right? So that's allowed. It's all together that allows that to be successful. Without Zoom or Slack or Teamwork, even if you have that ecosystem, it's really hard to service a client in British Columbia or Halifax, right? So the location, the anytime, anywhere, we're serious when we talk about that if it's set up correctly, that it doesn't really matter. Time zone becomes really the only issue at that point.
For sure. All right, filings and reporting. So our team will assist with your HST, GST filings on a monthly, quarterly, yearly. We'll make sure the software is set up correctly. Some, that can be a little bit tricky when you start to move online, but we will help you get that working properly. We'll also have monthly, quarterly, basically review meetings. It gives us a chance to review the financials with our clients and to sort of talk about, maybe any kind of important, decisions that are coming up, or how should you handle this, or even just talking about process, like how can we make this file better? I think it helps both sides. It's not to say, this is the only way that something's done. It gives us an opportunity to sort of talk about it, and it's a bit of face on face, even if it is through Zoom. It's always nice to, even when you're working completely remotely, I still like to have a lot of client interaction. I think it solves a lot of, questions or reassurance that everything's going to be okay and we can work through this. And then Kyle talked a bit about the package when we sort of do the corporate filing stuff. So our team will prepare everything for the accounting team, and then we'll send it over to the accounting team to sort of take over for the year-end process. What's nice about that is that because we are doing all this work, we become that glue that becomes between the accounting and the bookkeeping or the processing side of it. So it's nice that it's nice to have that, all in one spot, as well as when it comes to the T1 and the personal income tax side, we'll help accommodate the personal side to make sure it's sort of set aside so that accounting team can take over that as well. And we're running out of time.
We're on to questions.
Yes, we're on to questions.
Thank you so much, Kyle and Maggie. That was very informative. I just want to let everyone know that we will be having a fall webinar series as well, so you can stay tuned for that. In the meantime, let's get to some questions. So I believe some of you have submitted some questions throughout this webinar today. So the first question is for Kyle. Have you had many problems with Summit hosting for QuickBooks Desktop? If you use Summit, do you still need, in addition to Summit, a separate remote connection to connect between home PC and Office PC?
Okay, so I'm not familiar with Summit hosting, but I believe the questions we're pointing at that's still using QuickBooks Desktop. So that is, sometimes people set up remote computers to host. Again, you're tied to that computer, but it's hosting a QuickBooks Desktop file that people can remote into and view that desktop. Sorry, I'm not familiar with Summit. We don't use anything like that. Either we'll host our own file, or again, we're promoting people would use something like QuickBooks Online or Xero to kind of get away from that, because you're, again, limited on all the potential of the other integrations and what can happen. But you would at least probably just need a VPN connection to answer that question, set up on both of those computers, and it would still be the same Summit hosted server that you'd be accessing. So that is a solution that some people offer, especially if you need customized software or some sort of enterprise bookkeeping software for a larger enterprise that just, Xero or QuickBooks may not be able to handle. A lot of people do handle remote access that way, but I apologize, I'm not familiar with Summit's hosting service. But again, if possible, I would highly suggest looking into Xero or QuickBooks Online as a solution.
Thanks, Kyle. We've got another question here for Maggie. Can a team lead or manager approve an employee's time and T-sheets before it is integrated with QuickBooks?
Yes. So that's the idea. The idea is the employees entering their time, and then whoever that manager is approving that time and that timesheet in order to process. And it can actually, T-sheets can integrate either directly into WagePoint or directly into QuickBooks Online. And it's I'm pretty sure just on the online version. I don't think it'll integrate into desktop version.
Okay, great. Thanks, Maggie. And one more question. Does CRA still require business owners to retain paper receipts?
The answer is technically no. But with anything CRA, it's always a little gray, and they cover their butt in the wording of it. So what we always say, and I suggest to clients, is keep the paper record. It doesn't hurt to keep it, but I really don't worry about filing it very well. Because if you're taking the electronic copy, so CRA does say that if you've created an electronic copy, that becomes the master, as long as it's created within their guidelines, and the guidelines are gray. So what you want to do is, I've suggested, just have the shoebox. Like your accountant or bookkeeper always said, don't hand me a shoebox full of receipts. I don't want that. I'm going back to that and saying, keep the shoebox. And it's only in case of an emergency that they've audited you and they want the original, then you can go and dig through it, but odds are you'll never look at it again. And you keep that for your 7 to 10 years, and depending on your industry. So I always say, once you have the paper copy, they will accept that. If you want to be extra careful, keep the receipt, but please don't spend any time organizing that, because the odds that you're going to need to find it are not high. So I would say a shoebox with a year on it, and then all you have to do is look through a year or organize a year's worth of receipts if you get audited, and then if they demand the original, which is very unlikely, but at least it's there. I think over the next few years that our answer on that will really change and just get rid of it. So hopefully that helps.
Perfect. Thanks, Kyle. And we've got another question here. There are a number of us using Sage. Do you have any thoughts on Sage's cloud platform?
I'm going to attempt to answer this, and Kyle, you can piggyback on the back if you want. In my experience and being in the firm, so I'm a Sage user. I started using Sage when it was the DOS version. So actually that was simply back then. So I used it for a long time. I still will use it at times. The cloud side of it. So in my 3 years that I've been at RLB, I've had 2 clients that are using Sage's cloud platform. If we have a high needs, then we'll start to train on that, and we'll start to get our people certified. But until we see the need, it's probably not necessarily an investment we are going to make yet.
And the reason from my perspective, that is that Sage really focused, they've refocused. So Simply Accounting used to be a QuickBooks competitor. Since they've moved to Sage, they've really focused on kind of larger, more enterprise organizations. So if that's usually where the need sits, and from our perspective, RLB certainly services those from an accounting and tax and planning and all of that. But from a bookkeeping perspective, often those types of organizations would have an in-house team that are trained on Sage. I will say, just from industry knowledge, that that's much improved. I've heard good things, but to be honest, our experience with it probably isn't there to give you much more than that. But I've heard that they've really caught up, and that their cloud offering is getting there. I know somebody, a former bookkeeping trainer that used to work for QuickBooks that now works for Sage, that's pushing that. And if that's something you're highly interested in, I'd be happy to make a contact with her. She's essentially heading up Sage's cloud. So if that's something anybody's interested in, my contact information will be sent with the video. And if you need us to make a connection there, happy to do so.
Thank you so much. We've got one last final question for today. Do you also deal with clients in the U.S.?
Yes, we do. Actual U.S. clients or Canadian clients that have U.S. QuickBooks files?
That would be more of our. We have clients that have business in U.S. and Canada, and need to keep a separate set of books for the U.S. company. So a lot of our clients do business in the U.S. Yes, if the company is a U.S. corporation, it's just a slightly different consideration. But we do have clients that do that. QuickBooks and Xero separate that out. It's literally a different website to go and log in for that company. So and they handle things differently, and obviously that's the native currency. So yes, the answer is yes, and any solution we provided today does work in the US. The only hesitation I'd have on that is wage point for payroll.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
we'd have to look into a US payroll provider.
Okay, perfect. I think that's all we've got for questions today. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to email marketing@rlb.ca, and I will be sure to forward them on to Maggie and Kyle. If you'd like to check out rlb.ca, we will be advertising for our fall webinar series coming up in just a few weeks. We will be sending you a follow-up email with the recording today, as well as a feedback survey. If you wouldn't mind taking 2 minutes to fill it out, we'd greatly appreciate it, as we're always looking for ways to improve the services we offer. Thank you again, and have yourselves a wonderful day. Thanks so much, Kyle and Maggie.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, everyone.